It was horrific. It was bad.
Nothing like the Johnny football we saw at Texas A&M.
Number 20, Dion Jordan, Miami Dolphins.
2 years ago, Dion Jordan was the third pick overall in the NFL draft by the Dolphins, and tonight he has been suspended again.
The Miami Dolphins struck gold in 1983 with their draft pick of Dan Marino, one of the best quarterbacks in football history. They've had a mixed record ever since. Exactly 30 years later, the Dolphins thought they'd hit the jackpot again with defensive end Dion Jordan. The man was a tackling machine at Oregon, and despite a shoulder injury in his last year, Miami had high hopes. They drafted him at number 3. After a lackluster rookie season with only 26 tackles, he struggled with performance-enhancing substances. He faced multiple suspensions over the following years and bounced around the league. His time in the NFL ended after the 2020 season.
You can say that he is definitely the biggest draft bust the Dolphins have ever had, unfortunately.
Number 19, Kevin White, Chicago Bears.
Oh, Kevin White. Damn.
5 receptions.
Yeah, that was a bad one. You're right.
There was a lot of buzz around West Virginia wide receiver Kevin White before the 2015 draft. The Chicago Bears ultimately picked him up with the 7th overall draft pick in the first round. They were eager to see him racking up touchdowns and yardage and signed White to a 4-year, $15 million deal. Unfortunately, the Bears placed a bad bet. White ended up missing his entire rookie season. He spent his first 3 seasons hounded by leg and shoulder injuries. He moved first to the Cardinals, then to the 49ers and Saints. At the end of the 2022 season, the Saints cut White from their practice squad. He never caught a single touchdown in the NFL regular season.
Seems like you've had a couple of opportunities to kind of blow some guys up on some returns, and they have been fair catches. You know, is that kind of disappointing when you do all that work and you get down there and the guy doesn't give you a chance?
A little bit, yeah, for sure.
Number 18, Vernon Goldston, New York Jets.
They got Vernon Goldston. He played 3 seasons with the New York Jets. You know how many sacks he had? 0.
After some modest success in the 2000s, the New York Jets have had a run of bad luck. As of 2023, they have the longest playoff drought. They haven't made the playoffs since 2010. In 2008, they were hoping to build a tough defense around Vernon Goldston, a defensive end from Ohio State. In college, he was a sack factory, tying the school record twice. His stats at the Combine impressed the heck out of the Jets, and they snagged him in the first round at number 6. Goldston netted $21 million in guaranteed money. Unfortunately, he couldn't adapt to the outside linebacker position in the Jets' defensive scheme. He only played 1 whole season, recorded a handful of tackles, and didn't get a single sack.
So you got to say Vernon Goldston. He was the biggest bust ever, and he made $18 million doing nothing.
Number 17, Jason Smith, St. Louis Rams. At the 2009 draft, the St. Louis Rams were looking for a keystone player for their offensive line. After the Combine, they set their eyes on Jason Smith out of Baylor.
You know, obviously I come in as a guy that wants to be a part of a team and wants to do my part in doing whatever it is that Coach Spags has for us to do, and you know, you can't do that from the house.
He was an all-Big 12 player and co-MVP for the Baylor Bears. His combine was impressive. Smith proved to be shockingly fast for a big man. The Rams grabbed Smith at number 2. They gave him a massive deal. Smith's 6-year contract was worth around $61 million. Over half of that was guaranteed. In November, Smith suffered a terrible concussion. The following year, he lost his starter spot to a rookie. After a few less than memorable years, the Rams traded Smith away.
Everything that's happening to me as far as, I think the word is demoted. Is demoted the word I'm looking for? Demoted.
That's the word. Yeah.
Demoted to the 2s or not working with the starters. I mean, that's great.
Number 16, Josh Rosen, Arizona Cardinals.
He was called Chosen Rosen when he showed up and was handed the keys to the kingdom as a freshman at UCLA.
Josh Rosen was the star QB for the UCLA Bruins. Rosen was an NCAA phenom, setting the UCLA single-season passing record. As a freshman, Rosen was both an All-American and a Pac-12 Freshman Offensive Player of the Year. His future looked bright, and in 2018, he was drafted 10th overall by the Arizona Cardinals. Unfortunately for Rosen, quarterback wasn't Arizona's only weak spot on offense. His squad's performance was abysmal, and Rosen threw more interceptions than touchdowns. Between 2019 and 2023, Rosen floated through the league as a backup quarterback and a member of practice squads. He had pit stops in Miami, Tampa Bay, San Francisco, Atlanta, and Cleveland before getting cut by the Vikings in January 2023.
Well, that didn't sit well with former wide receiver Steve Smith from NFL Network, who ripped the quarterback, saying, quote, "When things don't go your way, you're going to cry in the corner."
Number 15, Matt Leinart, Arizona Cardinals.
To get drafted there was one thing, but showed a lot of promise. And then that second year, I was coming off the injury, so I didn't really have a good offseason.
Matt Leinart earned national prominence as one of two great quarterbacks in the incredible 2005 Rose Bowl. He helmed the USC Trojans against Vince Young and the Texas Longhorns. Both were subsequently drafted into the NFL. Leinart was picked up at number 10 by the Arizona Cardinals. Their plan was to have him back up veteran Super Bowl champ Kurt Warner to learn from a master. Leinart played with the Cardinals between 2006 and 2009, starting in only 17 games. Of those, the Cardinals only won 7. When Warner left the Cards in 2010, the Heisman Trophy winner lost the job to Derek Anderson. Before retiring in 2013, Leinart played in only 4 games, 2 for Houston and 2 for Oakland.
I was screwed from day one.
Yeah.
I felt like, and again, I didn't help myself at times, but there was nothing I could do right.
Number 14, David Klingler, Cincinnati Bengals.
Klingler, 36 out of 57, 510 yards against the Bulldog defense. No interceptions, 9 touchdowns.
The Cincinnati Bengals were briefly a force to be reckoned with at the end of the 1980s. They had recently lost to San Francisco in the Super Bowl. By the end of the 1990s, the page had turned. An aging Boomer Esiason was struggling in the back half of his career. They won only 3 games in 1991, and the Bengals were looking to the future with their high draft pick. At the time, David Klingler was breaking records left and right at the University of Houston. He threw a record-breaking 11 touchdowns against Eastern Washington. Cincinnati eagerly burned their first-round pick on the budding superstar. Unfortunately, of his 24 starts with the Bengals, they won only 4 games.
I played fairly well today, but not great. I feel like there's still room for improvement.
Number 13, Justin Gilbert, Cleveland Browns.
The Cleveland Browns select Justin Gilbert, defensive back, Oklahoma State.
The Cleveland Browns have a long, depressing history. Since they moved to Baltimore to become the Ravens and after they were reconstituted as a new team, the Browns have struggled. The new Browns have a long, sordid history of draft pick disappointments. In 2014, they burned their 8th overall pick on a cornerback named Justin Gilbert. Gilbert was the defensive MVP of the 2012 Fiesta Bowl and a solid kickoff returner for the OSU Cowboys. The guy was perceived to be both the defensive and special teams threats. 2 picks for the price of 1. He netted exactly 1 interception and 1 defensive touchdown in his 3 years in the NFL.
Well, it's not there so far for the Cleveland Browns. I mean, he can't even get on the football field for this football team.
He was suspended for the 2017 season for substance abuse violations and never returned. Number 12, Steve Emptman, Indianapolis Colts.
Indianapolis Colts, first choice is Steve Emptman, defensive end, University of Washington.
The Indianapolis Colts of the early 1990s desperately needed to shore up their porous defensive line. Enter Steve Emptman, a guy who won the Heisman as a junior. With Emptman anchoring their defense, the Washington Huskies secured a Rose Bowl victory. He seemed like the answer to all of Indy's prayers, so they snatched him up in the 1992 draft. Unlike many draft busts, Emptman wasn't a college titan turned professional dud.
Intercepted. Look at him go. Emptman has it. This is Steve Emptman at 6'4", 290 pounds.
He was plagued by serious injuries. He blew out a knee in both of his first 2 seasons and suffered a serious neck injury in his third. Many football observers blamed the hard AstroTurf surface for his injuries. His career woes are credited with the NFL's transition from turf to grass fields. Number 11, Heath Scheler, Washington.
Get another one on Heath Scheler.
Yeah, I think this one's going to be more productive than the other guy.
Washington beat the Buffalo Bills in Super Bowl 26. Facing a resurgent NFC East, they spent the next few years struggling to keep their team in fighting shape. They were searching for a new franchise quarterback in the 1994 draft. Their gaze turned towards the Tennessee Volunteers. Young Heath Scheler was absolutely decimating records. Most analysts considered him a guaranteed game changer, as did Scheler. After Washington eagerly snapped him up, Scheler was a training campaign as his agent negotiated a hefty contract. When the season began, the college hotshot floundered in the pros. In his 8 rookie starts, Scheler threw 12 interceptions and lost all but one game.
That's when you turn around at the end of the game, you think, is it possible for me to ever complete another ball to an offensive guy ever again?
Number 10, Isaiah Wilson, Tennessee Titans.
The Tennessee Titans select Isaiah Wilson, tackle, Georgia.
They're going beef.
Unlike many infamous busts, Isaiah Wilson barely made the first-round cut of the 2020 NFL Draft. He was a second-team All-SEC offensive tackle out of Georgia. Tennessee had high hopes for Wilson, but his rookie year was an absolute mess. First, he was arrested for a DUI in September of 2020. Then he spent most of the season oscillating between active status and the reserve COVID-19 list. He also served a one-game suspension for violating team rules. He played exactly 1 snap in his rookie year before getting traded to the Dolphins. He was waived by Miami exactly 3 days later for missing a mandatory physical and skipping team workouts.
This guy was traded, I think it was like last week, to the Miami Dolphins, and the Dolphins only kept him for 3 days.
The New York Giants also cut him from their practice squad in 2022. Number 9, Lawrence Phillips, St. Louis Rams.
Despite serious questions about his character, the St. Louis Rams took a chance on Phillips.
The St. Louis Rams took a tremendous risk with Lawrence Phillips in the 1996 NFL Draft. On one hand, the running back was a star. As a freshman, he came off the bench and ran for 137 yards against UCLA, the reigning Pac-10 champions. He also crested 180 yards in the 1994 Orange Bowl. But Phillips was also arrested for assault.
In his first year in the NFL, Phillips was arrested 3 times and fined by the Rams almost 30 times.
In the pros, his numbers were lackluster. Phillips also bears the dubious honor of missing the block that may have saved the career of 49er legend Steve Young. After retirement, Phillips was arrested for running 3 people over with his car. He was sentenced to a 31-year term for multiple assaults. He then killed a cellmate and ultimately died in prison. Number 8, Andre Ware, Detroit Lions. One of the sad truths about the NFL is it took far too long to see black quarterbacks every Sunday. In 1990, Andre Ware had a chance to follow in the footsteps of greats like Warren Moon and Randall Cunningham. Ware had a cannon for an arm. While a junior at Houston, he set 27 NCAA records. There were concerns he was too unseasoned to handle the faster pace of the NFL.
Despite running his college offense in the pros, the Heisman Trophy winner was lost in familiar territory.
The Lions drafted Ware over the objections of their scouting coordinator, who resigned in protest. The coordinator was right. Over his brief time with the Lions, Ware only started 6 games. He stayed close to the game after his retirement from the pros. Today, Ware is a television fixture for college football fans.
Staying neutral with the job. That's what I'm doing today.
Number 7, Achille Smith, Cincinnati Bengals.
Just a season ago, Achille Smith was one of the nation's collegiate best, dreaming of what life would be like starting in the NFL.
Achille Smith is an interesting figure in football history. 6 years before entering the NFL, Smith was actually drafted by MLB's Pittsburgh Pirates. He spent 3 years with their farm teams before heading to Oregon for college. As a senior, he averaged almost 3 touchdowns per game. His per-attempt passing yards were the best in the NCAA. Still, 1999 was a big draft year for quarterbacks, and analysts had their doubts. He only really had 1 season as a starter under his belt. The Bengals rolled the dice and paid the price. Literally, Smith held out for weeks until he got a signing bonus of almost $11 million. In 4 seasons, Smith only started in 17 games and fumbled in most of them.
Smith steps up, lost it. it's recovered by Cincinnati.
Number 6, Brian Bosworth, Seattle Seahawks.
Coming out of the University of Oklahoma, Brian Bosworth was arguably the most hyped player in college history.
Any boomers and Gen Xers out there know all about the Bos. As a linebacker with Oklahoma, Brian Bosworth won the Dick Butkus Award and was a twice-named unanimous All-American. But that success came with a large serving of controversy. The Bos was a nationally known bad boy who also tested positive for steroids.
In 1987, the two-time Butkus Award winner was kicked off Oklahoma's team for failing a drug test.
The Seahawks needed a tougher defense, so they gave him a shot, despite his letter of disinterest. His career started off well enough, but a shoulder injury ended it in less than 3 seasons. Bosworth spent the 90s starring in cheesy action films. Number 5, Charles Rogers, Detroit Lions.
Physically, he has it all. He has to set his mind to being a great player.
There are few draft picks regretted more deeply by Lions fans than Charles Rogers. A local Michigan boy, Rogers flew like a lightning bolt as a receiver for the Spartans. He was poised to be the best offensive weapon wielded by the Lions since Barry Sanders. He had an amazing start in his first 5 games as a rookie. He looked like he could eventually become the next Randy Moss. It all came crashing down when a hit during practice broke his clavicle. The following year, he broke his clavicle again only 3 games into the season. He played one final and lackluster season before being released and retiring.
Get to the bus first, then call it a bus. I mean, how many people been a number 2 draft pick? Bro, I got there. I did that.
Number 4, Tony Mandrich, Green Bay Packers.
Everybody says, oh, he was the ultimate bust. Well, in Green Bay, yeah, you could probably say that.
In the NFL, a truly great offensive lineman is worth his weight in gold. Michigan State's offensive tackle Tony Mandrich was valued at more than a few bricks. Sports Illustrated called Mandrich the incredible bulk. He was a tremendous block of muscle and shockingly quick on his feet. A few hyperbolic scouts called him the best offensive line prospect ever. The Packers grabbed him at number 2 overall. What didn't go wrong? He was a problem on and off the field, with a bad attitude and substance use disorder.
Suspicions of steroid use spread further when Mandrich showed up in Green Bay 15 pounds lighter than his college playing weight.
After taking 2 years off to get sober, he finished his career with 3 halfway decent seasons with the Indianapolis Colts. Number 3, Johnny Manziel, Cleveland Browns.
The Cleveland Browns select Johnny Manziel, quarterback, Texas A&M.
Where to begin with Johnny football? At Texas A&M, the baby-faced quarterback reached unusual levels of fame for a college player. He was a Heisman winner with impressive numbers. Still, sports fans were a little shocked when he announced he would go pro 2 years early. The buzz around Manzel was as electric as it was ubiquitous. Every sports prognosticator from coast to coast saw him as a top 5 pick. His fame-seeking left the league unimpressed. With his stock dropping to number 22 on draft day, his play, when he saw any field time, was as atrocious as his attitude. A nagging elbow injury and domestic violence allegations ended his NFL career after only 2 seasons.
One of the biggest busts in NFL history.
Tiny, selfish, undisciplined, immature.
Number 2, Ryan Leaf, San Diego Chargers.
And I remember the next day as well when Leaf came in from an all-nighter in Vegas, which should have been a red flag at the time.
The Chargers have never won a Super Bowl while in San Diego. In the late 1990s, they hoped to change that. They and the Colts were both vying for the number 1 draft pick in 1998. They each saw a future in a young Tennessee Volunteer named Peyton Manning. The Colts lost their final game in 1997, so Manning was theirs. The rest is history. The Chargers placed their hopes in Ryan Leaf. The media barely saw a difference between the two, so the Chargers were confident that Leaf would give them a bold new future. What they got was a quarterback who threw 2 touchdowns and 15 interceptions his rookie year. He faded into obscurity after playing in only 3 seasons.
I thought somewhere along the line he'd just come into somebody, the coach, somebody say, you know what, I've screwed up, but it never happened.
Number 1, Jamarcus Russell, Oakland Raiders.
Being drafted number 1 is so much that they want you to do, in the snap of a finger. It didn't happen that way.
Close observers of the NFL will tell you that Jamarcus Russell is a cautionary tale about how character matters. There's no doubt at all that the man had talent. At 6 foot 6 inches, 260 pounds, he was a big athletic quarterback with thunder in his arm. Analyst Mel Kiper once compared the LSU star to John Elway. The Raiders nabbed him at number 3, paid him over $31 million guaranteed, and then the troubles began. He came into camp 30 pounds overweight. He clearly cared more about the money than the job. His partying and laziness got in the way of his talent. In a meager 25 starts, he threw more interceptions than touchdowns and fumbled more than both.
Do you consider yourself the biggest bust in NFL draft history?
When you look at it that way, I say I must have been the best to be the biggest.
Did we fumble the ball with any of our picks? Tackle the problem with your worst draft picks in the comments below.
Johnny Manziel rides as the future of Cleveland football. Now he will soon leave as an embarrassment.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from Watch Mojo and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.